Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm excited to introduce you to our guest. But before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. The real tragedy of the poor is the poverty of their aspirations. Adam Smith. My dear friend, Michael Melicia is here, founder of CPEX, Coastal Paving and Excavating. He's been doing it since he was basically out of the womb. But founded an organization that now is in the 8+ figures, not even 30 years old. His story is, needless to say, inspiring, but they've grown over 300% since inception. And outside all that, Mike is a down-to-earth guy, family man, and a new friend. Thanks for coming on the show, man. And I like seeing your videos online.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This is the first one, and I'm super pumped, super honored. And ever since I met you out there in Vegas, man, I immediately could just, I felt a connection, could tell you were just a straight up guy. And I really appreciate you reaching out, and I appreciate, all your support as well. So
thank you. Yeah, we should touch on that. This is your first podcast. So how uncomfortable, 0 to 10? And then what's your advice for people that want to go on these things?
So I actually just did a story on my Instagram walking up here to do this. And, I was nervous. I had the same nerves that I've always had going into anything I've done, especially knocking on doors. It's, when you walk up to somebody's door, it's nerve wracking. You don't know what's going to happen. And as much as that feeling is, much as we think we hate that feeling, I really actually think there's something to be found in that feeling. I feel like that feeling is what drives, or if you let it, can drive you to do things that, really give you value after you've done them. So, anytime I've ever had that feeling and this feeling, it's never let me down. So, I was nervous. And then obviously right when we kicked this off, I'm comfortable. So we're good.
Now, do you think you'd be where you are today had you not developed that ability to just lean into discomfort, or did you always have that? I guess the first question is, do you think you'd be where you are today if you didn't kind of lean into that?
No, not at all. I definitely wouldn't. I give everything that I have and have done to that feeling right there. Yeah.
There are listeners right now that have something they need to do. They need to lead into. Let's say that they need to hear, they need a big brother right now. They need accountability. What are you saying to them?
That it does not matter if you know exactly what it is that you want. Everyone talks about these vision boards, and, they have all these things that they, you have all these influencers or whatever you call them, motivators, coaches, whatever, that, tell you have to know what you want and see it and all that. And that's true to some point. I think we all deep down know what we want and can see it. But I don't think that you actually have to have the plan to get it. I think you just have to put in action against all odds. And that's the best I can say to anyone is, just literally just start doing, and kind of like with what we're doing, like even with just the Instagram thing and this right here, it's like, I know nothing about it, but I'm just going to start doing it and we'll see where it goes. And I think that people need to stop thinking, on a time basis, with like we're all running out of time. Of course, we're all going to die one day. But you're not going to waste any time by trying and doing and putting effort towards anything, even if it's the wrong thing. I mean, you're going to find out soon enough, and God has your best interest. So just start doing it, whatever it is, whatever, like if you want to be a astronaut, just start doing action, just put the action towards that. Yeah. Maybe you'll get there, maybe you won't, but don't beat yourself up if you don't. But chances are, if you put the action in, you might end up an astronaut. So
were you talented right off the gate doing door knocking?
No, not at all. Not at all. I actually, so doing door knocking was something that I learned the skill of having to, and we can touch on that if you want later or whatever, but I learned that skill from a bad habit that I had as a young, at a young age, that kind of taught me something that's always been instilled in me. And that's, I have no choice. I have to do this. There's no, if I don't do this, like I'm, what am I going to get? Like, I have to do it. So I would just walk to the door and like,
Wow.
I'd almost just count to three. Like I'd make a deal with myself and say, on the count of three, you're walking to that door and you're knocking on the door. There's no, we're not going to wheel and deal here. This is what you're doing, Michael. So I'd say 1, 2, 3, and I would walk to the door. I'd knock on it. And I did things differently than, and this took me a few tries, I did things, I think, a little differently. There's a lot of people who are very salesy, and you got to be outgoing to sell, and you have to be a extrovert. I'm actually an introvert at heart, very deeply. And I did it more as I wasn't trying to sell anybody anything. I was simply offering something that they could possibly use. And if they didn't want it, there's no big deal. I'm not going to sit here and try and talk you into it. I'm just going to say, okay, you have a good day. Be as very respectful and kind and caring, compassionate as can be. Move on with my life. They move on with theirs. Because somebody, and it's, down 5 doors down, 10 doors down, is going to want it. So I don't have to sell you right now on this, because I don't really have to sell anybody. Somebody's going to want what I can give. And that's my fair share of this, this world.
Do you think that how you ended each each relationship in that moment increased the likelihood of you wanting to meet a new person? Like it doesn't sound like it was hostile. So I don't know. I'm curious if you can unpack that a little.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was some hostile ones. There's, and everyone has something to learn, and so maybe they learned something. And actually I have a good story of somebody who did learn, and I'll just jump into that because that might help explain this. But I knocked on this gentleman's door one day, and he basically cussed me out, slammed the door on me, get the heck out of here. I walked right over to his neighbor's house, and that neighbor had said, yeah, please do my driveway. I did their driveway. And the guy that slammed the door on me, literally seen me out there, came out and apologized to me and said, I'm so sorry. I was having a bad day. My mother's having some health problems, whatever it was. And you caught me on a bad time. He goes, but I want you to do my driveway.
No way.
Yeah. So then I ended up doing his as well. And he tipped me. He ended up being a realtor. So he made me all these signs and stuff. And he started putting signs out for me. So I was getting driveways like that. I was 20 years old at the time, but he's still he's still a friend. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't always, it was hostile sometimes. But you just got to let those things go. And you kind of get addicted to, for every so many no's, it could be 1 no, it could be 100 no's, could be 1,000 no's. There is a yes out there. And if you just keep that going and you just keep knocking, keep doing, the yes is going to come eventually.
For those that don't yet know, what were the products, services, deliverables that your business that you started were delivering at that time, and how has that evolved?
Yeah, so at that time, I actually didn't even have my contractor's license, and we live in the state of California where you have to have a contractor's license. So it was a gray area, or I guess not even. It was black and white. I wasn't supposed to be doing it. But I had to do it, I had obligations. It's so the services that we were offering, were basically just small driveways. I would kind of look out for the ones that were, small enough to where the price wouldn't be, because you could do work up to $500 legally. And then anything after $500, you have to have a license. So I would try and keep it as close to 500 as I could. Of course, that was uncontrollable at some point, but so that was my first thing. And I would offer basically just a seal coat, which what that is, your driveway for asphalt's looking, it's looking gray and it's looking, ugly, beat up, dirty. Basically what we come and do is, clean up the driveway, get all the weeds out of the cracks, fill the cracks with, like a crack filler. And then we would seal coat the driveway with a black, basically what it is paint for a driveway. And now it makes your old ugly driveway look, not brand new, but a whole heck of a lot better, nice and black, pretty. And then you know, I always respected people's homes, and you know, I would do a little extra and, like, you know, clean up their edges and their little landscaping, blow their patios off, stuff like that. Just you know, trying to go that extra mile. So that was what I initially started doing.
Hmm.
Uh, and then now obviously that's turned into what we're doing now, which is full scale, all general engineering services. So
For
we work.
someone that's thinking, how could I do what Michael's done? Let's that 8-year period, 7-year period to go from seal coating and some hedges or not hedges, extra yard, whatever you were doing, extra value to what you are today. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Let's start with step 2, because with step 1 seems like you got to have grit.
Yeah, step 1, I mean, we basically just covered that. You just need a truck and a tank, basically. And then the drive and the will and the want. Step 2 is obviously, don't just accept step 1 as like that's good enough. You know, if you're doing something wrong, specifically talking about like California with no license, wasn't doing it out of ill intention. I was doing it out of that's what I had to work with. And so once you get to a point of, I was also too young to have a contractor's license. So that's why I couldn't even get
How
it.
old were you?
I was 19 turning 20. So
Wow.
you could technically get it at 18, but you can't, because you got to have 4 years of verified experience. And how would you have that at 18? So I think I got it in 2017. So 22 or something. But the next step would be, don't accept that and start learning the laws and the business side of things, and actually turn it into a true, real business, a legitimate business. Part of step 2 is then you start working on your advertising. Get logos on your truck, come up with a logo, get the number on the truck. One very important part of that is, don't use your cell phone like I did, because 5-10 years down the road, it's a whole mess of getting that all changed and getting people to forget that cell phone number. So but yeah, so I mean, once you get the business part of it all dialed in, everything that I had, I put towards advertising. So I got a good website, good SEO, good, logos on the truck. I mean, some of this stuff was more money than I had, I mean, like a good website,
Really?
15 grand, good logos on trucks are $30,000. And I wasn't making that kind of money yet. I was, but it's like, you could put that money in your kid's savings, or you could put it back into your business. I chose to keep putting it back in the business. And then once you get that kind of dialed in, from there, it's just continue to maintain the same service that you had when you were, just yourself, knocking on doors, and go that extra mile for, for your customers. If you put your name out there in all areas, social media, SEO, website, trucks, word of mouth, all that stuff is going to start to kind of snowball effect, and you'll start picking up, a lot more work. The thing about picking up more work, though, is then you need more equipment, you need more guys, you need, more staff, you need office, and you can't be afraid to hire those people. Something that my brother-in-law actually told me was, 10 people's 80% is still better than your 100%, because 10 times 80 is 800%. And when he told me that, I kind of knew, I understood what he was saying. And that's when I really started to just hire people and hire talent, whether I could even afford them or not at the time. If they were good and they could add value, I hired them. And that never let me down. Like the first superintendent I hired was, 120 grand a year. I don't even think I was really making that at the time, but I hired him anyways. And then that year we did 3 million from 1 million. So I think that a big part of this growing, and step 2 is really finding the key players, find your soldiers, put them on the field, and they'll help bring you to bigger places. So it's all about the people.
Were you afraid?
I'm still afraid. I'm always afraid. I'm afraid because not because I think I'm going to fail, because I actually know I'm not going to fail, because I can't fail. But it's scary knowing that, and this has gotten worse as we've grown, because I don't have parents that I can call, hey, I can't make payroll. I don't have anyone that I can call and say that to. I didn't even have banks because I messed my credit up so bad, and I fixed it, of course. But so it was always scary. And I think that part of this type of stuff, I think a big thing that is like blind faith almost, and just intuition and just believing that this is gonna work, and just rolling with that, I mean, and if it fails at the end of the day, I mean, you could always go get a job, I mean, that's it. Like, you could go get a job. The problem with me is I'm never going to, like, I will just, I'll just start another business and just keep trying and keep going. And that hasn't failed me since yet. And I don't think it's going to fail. It's really flourished. And I'm very happy with what's happened.
Where does part of your confidence come from? Your MBA?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have what I call
I know a little too much.
Yeah, a Google MBA, man. When in doubt, Google your way out. Literally everything that I've ever learned is Google, podcasts, watching people like Brad, watching people like Gary V, those are more of the, like, the inspiration type of things. But just listening and learning from the people that are doing what better than you, and what you want to do. And then Googling these things. So for instance, if somebody says something on, like, say Bradley said something on one of his videos, and I didn't know what word he just used, but it sounded like something, I just go and immediately go and Google what it is. And then it just starts, literally, you can just read stuff and teach yourself anything you want to know. Like that didn't happen. That's not a true story or anything, but it's like that, where, like, literally for me, I literally believe I have a Google MBA. So
have you always been curious and a self-learner?
Yeah, I've always just researched stuff, and what's weird is, like, if I'm in school or something, or somebody hands me a book and, like, says, here, you have to read this, I cannot read a book. I can't read like that. I don't know what it is, but I have to, like, want it before I can read it, so if I want to know, like, real estate, which we just got into about 2 years ago, year and a half, I didn't know anything about it, and I Googled the heck out of it, and now I think I know quite a bit. I think that it's, a lot of people use it, but not always for what for what they can use it for. Even like our like office, all of our employees, sometimes they'll ask me a question, and just to be kind of silly with them, I'll be like, I think this information might be on Google. And then they'll go Google it, and then they'll come and tell me all about it. And I'm like, there you go. Even if I knew the answer, but I just want people to know that you don't always have to ask somebody else. You if you just go put that action in and go try and find it, you're going to find your answer. So I'm not a asshole either. I'll answer people's questions, but
do you think that it's been important for you to seek information to get to where you've gotten so quickly?
Yeah, I think that that's part of when I say just put in the action. I think that, like, so, like, you're on the airplane, or you're in your bed, or whatever it is, you're not really doing much. You're watching TV, you got Joe Rogan playing on the TV, or whatever it is. I'm still on my phone, and I mean, sometimes it's swiping Instagram, but for the most part, it's like, I'll, like, get something in my head and just, Google and start reading on info. And I think that you can never know too much. You can never learn too much. So find things that you're interested in and just start learning about them, reading about them. And yeah, I mean, that's usually what I do on my free time. And I think that that's helped tremendously, for sure.
As a business owner, what's the attraction of real estate investment?
I mean, well, so the attraction there is, well, one, my wife really wanted it. I actually wasn't really ready. She pushed us to do it.
Wow.
I was ready, and I just didn't know it. But I think what happens is, you get to a point to where, you got to be smart with your earnings, and you can't lose in real estate. I don't recommend anybody start with real estate. There's some people out there that just know it so well that they do, and they do great, but I don't know. So I can't recommend it. I think that it's a very slow game. But I think that there's nothing wrong with having multiple avenues of, actually you're supposed to have multiple avenues of income and growth. And you have a bunch of tax incentives as well. And what I actually ended up doing was I started a separate company, J&M Properties. And then I started to do what I always do. And I started Googling stuff, some tax codes, and just Googling everything in general. And now what I've done is we've taken all of our personal properties, we put it into J&M Properties. But also J&M Properties now controls and rents our office space, our warehouse, our yards, to Coastal Paving, and any other business that we have. So you can kind of cross the two and actually create, a lot of value, because now all the income all the rent that you're paying is going towards, that company. And then that company, you're able to do things like remodels and so forth that, you can write off. So you're not just getting hit with the initial, income. You actually are able to use some tax strategies there as well. So.
And what's the plan with the real estate? Is it going to be more commercial or a mixture of residential, or?
It'll be a mixture. Yeah, it's just right now it's residential and then our commercial stuff. But we're not really going to grow that too much. It'll just be kind of what it's being used for now, just kind of protect assets and, and some tax strategy stuff.
You said that your wife pushed you to do the real estate. So what's your advice for the up and comers out there that are in a relationship building their business?
Like I said, I wasn't fully ready, or I didn't think I was, but I ended up being ready, without knowing it. Sometimes you have to have a push, but sometimes it can be too early. Like if it was, 2 years into my business, I wouldn't have been able to do it, and it could have tanked the business. I think you really got to make sure that you find your heartbeat, and my heartbeat is Coastal Paving. That is what drives everything forward. And you have to make sure that is doing well. You have to protect the heart. And sometimes, taking, a big down payment and then a mortgage and so forth, can affect your business if you don't have it fully established. For instance, like say that superintendent that I hired, that was 120 grand a year. I mean, I could have thought of it like, well, I could take that 120 grand, put it towards a house, but then Coastal Paving still would have only been making its $1.5 million or $1 million, whatever it was doing, maybe a little more, but so I think you first have to focus on one thing. Don't try and diversify too fast. And then, but also be open to when the wife tells you, be open to it, but don't mess up the heart.
What do you mean the heart?
So the heart, like your main business, if you want to buy real estate, make sure you can actually do it without affecting the heartbeat.
Have you seen people mess that up?
Yeah, I mean, I not really know them personally, but yeah, I know some people who have bought in, houses, and that usually it's the ones that they can't afford. That's the other thing, is don't buy the house, don't buy your dream house at first. The first thing we bought was a 1,000 square foot house that we now rent out. So don't get too crazy. And I think that's where you really get in trouble. And I've seen a few people get in trouble there for sure.
At this level, what have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned that you can impart to the audience?
On which part?
Just growing a team. You got what, over 50 people that you're responsible or accountable for, on a daily basis.
I think some advice that I would have is, it's kind of the golden rule. And just if you use that with your employees and your staff, you can't go wrong. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't be scared to be there, to support them in times of need. I've actually worked for people who are like, they, no loans, they won't give you a loan. And I have created more of a family culture. Um, and if somebody needs something, even if it's just a shoulder to lean on or an ear to talk to. I mean, if it's midnight, I'll talk to any one of our employees. I have a
Really?
connection with each one of them. And then always, show that you're still there with them in the trenches. I mean, I could go and just sit at Hawaii, for half the year and, never come by and whatever. If I wanted to, that wouldn't be good for culture. Instead,
Why not? Why not?
I mean, I just don't think that because it makes people start to feel like, you're just raking it in and they're sitting here breaking their back. And everyone's struggling, especially now with the economy and stuff. I mean, you can't go to the grocery store and it costs me like $1,000 to go to the grocery. I have a family, of course, but it's super expensive, especially where we live. So, obviously I'm going to enjoy the fruits of my labor. And it may be different than, others, but I'm not going to be, I would never, let them, see me not care about the struggle. And
Hmm.
I also really like to go out in the field. That's where I actually love to be.
Really?
So, yeah, you'll see me paving, out there with the guys. I'll shovel with them. I love physical, work. And another good point on that is, when you're hiring people, to hire the people that do the things that you don't like doing. So for me, I hate paperwork. I hate estimating. I hate reading plans. I hate pretty much all office work. I absolutely hate. And so, a lot of people would say, well, work on your business, not in it. And if you see me running the paver, you're like, oh, this guy's working in his business. He's not. Well, no, I actually have a guy that handles all the business stuff. He's the ex-CEO of a $3.5 billion company. And now he works here and he's handling all the stuff that I don't like handling.
Hmm.
So I am working on the business, but also I am doing the part of the business that I like to do. Like for instance, or payroll. I don't want to go do payroll. So hire somebody to do the payroll and then find what you like to do. And I think that's really what working on the business means, not just, from the top. You don't have to work on your business from the top is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah. What do you think people miss there?
I think I think everybody wants to be on the top and I don't
Good
care.
point.
I just don't care like that. I care about what makes me happy
Hmm.
and we're a lot of people are also stubborn and get in their own way. And they won't let go to grow. They won't let somebody else do something because they think they're going to mess it up. And 9 times out of 10, every time where I've done that, because nobody's perfect, I've gotten in my own way before and I was scared to let something go. And then I finally did. And then I seen that they did it way better than me. And so I actually always talk to my wife about this because, if you think about it, if I was stuck on just being the best driveway seal coat guy in the world, or the best, asphalt raker, I would never have gotten to where I am today because I'd still be just doing it myself. You see a lot of these entrepreneurs, they're still entrepreneurs and they started their business, but they're doing all of it. They're doing everything because they won't let go, because they think they're the best at that. And most of the guys in the field are better than me at raking and shoveling. And they all get, it's competition, whatever. But for me, I just never had to be the best at any one thing. And I never had to be on the top. I just wanted to do what made me happy. So
Do you think that's helped this community of people kind of grow around you?
absolutely. Yeah. I think that, it lets people do what they want to do. a lot of the employees in their titles, I've kind of almost let a lot of them kind of pick them, because, you're going to get a lot more out of somebody who's doing what they like doing, rather than just doing what they're going to get, what you'll pay them to do. If you come in and apply for a position and you go, I really want to, uh, do estimating. Well, I'm like, well, we're not hiring for an estimator. So, here's a shovel, or here's, you could do, whatever, here's some, do payroll. They're not going to, it's not what they want to do. So they're not going to put as much effort and value into it. So a lot of the times it's not just what are we hiring for, it's what do you want to do. And when you let people almost choose what path they want to go within your company, you get you just get a lot more value and a good culture out of everyone, because everyone's happy. I mean, it's not perfect. There's people who, we're still a smaller business in the grand scale of things, so we're still growing. So there's growing pains, and there's some people, including myself, who sometimes have to pick up, pick a little extra load up here and there. That's just part of being a family and being a team, so.
You don't feel like you're above that?
No, never. I literally just was shoveling asphalt the other day. I'm not above anything. So,
well, what do you say to the listener that's thinking, nah, that's not for me, I'll have someone else do it?
well, if that's what you want to do, I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing that. You can do it that way too. There's no one way to slice the cake, and there's businesses that I've walked in, and you walk in and it's like people are marching, everyone's desk is clean, everyone is, dialed into what, like they're kind of, they're just following what their job is and being told, this is what you're going to do, this is what our rules are, so forth. I just don't think that they're all happy. I don't, I mean, obviously we want to all be professional. We have to, have a code of conduct and things like that. But people who are working in those environments are doing it because they have to, not because they want to. The people who are saying, yeah, it's not for me, I want to, I just want to kind of sit back, collect a check. I mean, or, and so forth. Unless you have a lot of funding behind you and, just I don't know, I guess a lot more, a different approach to this, which is fine. If you're starting from 2 suitcases and nothing, I just don't think that's gonna work. You're gonna have to put in the work.
Yeah, the 2 suitcases. So you moved back to Monterey from where? And you had 2 suitcases, and that's what was before the seal coating and all of this.
Yeah, so I lived in Denver. I moved to Denver when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And long story short, got into a lot of, my own troubles and so forth. And then started talking to my now wife around 19. And then, yeah, I basically put my 2 weeks in. I was working a job at Ambient H2O in Lakewood, Colorado. And what they do is fix sewer pumps. So like I would dismantle the sewer pump and fix it and put it back together. I was making $13.85 an hour. That was my last job I ever had. And so I got my last check. It was, basically $300 to $500. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think I got a Frontier ticket for like $50. I flew home, and me and my now wife, we moved out of her. Well, she was living with her mom at the time, and we moved out of her mom's house, or not. I wasn't living there. I was actually staying with my cousin. But basically, we talked about, okay, let's go get our own place. But we couldn't find our own place at first, so we actually were staying in this like long-term stay cabin hotel type of thing. Until we found a place, and we found a place, and that's when from there we had our baby, our daughter, and now we have our son, and got married. And
did you think then that you'd be here?
So then, no, you know, I was still doing some bad things, and I was doing the seal coating. I was knocking on the doors, but I, had my habit or whatever. And I wanted that. I remember telling my mom, because she actually came out and lived with us for a little bit. I remember telling her, because of like how hard it was, going and knocking on doors. Sometimes it would get really stressful and like scary and whatever. I remember telling my mom, like, gosh, I really wish that one day I could have all like you and like all my, I'd really love to have a real office and like a real warehouse and like a real company, I like would just love to have my family work in there, and I just want it to be real one day. And I didn't believe it though. I really didn't believe, I just believed it was unobtainable.
Huh.
But for some reason, blind faith, I just kept going, and like, yeah, we ended up getting that. And then now that you have that, now is what's the next thing? I think there's something to be, found there. It's a good quality, but you can also get yourself in trouble like that,
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, so like people say, not to, you don't need work-life balance. And, I don't think that you need the balance, but I think that your kids and your family do need you to be present. And being present just doesn't mean you're there. Cause I actually spend more time with my kids and wife than I think a lot of people in my shoes do. The problem is, am I present? And in all honesty, that's something that I'm personally working on right now. Is no, I'm not always present, because I'm thinking of the next thing I want to accomplish, and that's where I think you can get yourself in trouble by just always wanting more. But at the same time, I mean, that's what it's a good quality and a good trait and something that you should do. I think it's just, I just think that you could eventually get in trouble with that. There's got to be some point where you say, okay, I'm good with what we're doing, where we're at. I don't need to do anymore.
Where do you see the company go?
So for Coastal Paving, I see it going to about a $50 million revenue company. That I think will come just doing what we're doing. I don't think I think with what we've been doing, just in time, that's going to come. The other thing about that though, is it's like, sometimes this growth is uncontrollable. Sometimes it's not because you're not pushing. Like this year, for instance, we weren't pushing to do $3 more million in revenue, but here we are. It's like
Good problem.
And it's hard, but how do you stop that? How do you stop that from happening? Really, if it's just happening, like you kind of just.
How good are you at saying no?
Yeah, not good, man. That's really the problem. So I don't know, man, but yeah, it's
But why 50 million? Is that like the model? There it becomes a level of, all right, another level of strain. Is it you have interest in other verticals?
Because well, I think that there was companies that I looked at as, oh my gosh, that's impossible. And that's basically where they're at. And I think that I have to achieve that.
Mm.
And I think that at that point, it'll also employ enough people to, I would like to have a family of about 120 people, and I would like my kids to be able to carry that on. But that's just kind of been my goal. The hard part is that, again, if I get to that goal, am I going to then need to go to 100 million, but I don't think I personally will. If my son wants to do that, great. I think that that's where I'm going to draw my line.
Is he involved yet?
No, he's only, well, yeah, he is actually. He's 3 years old. And he starts school on Monday, and I'm super sad. But mama always brings him to see me, especially when I'm out in the field working on tractors, because he just loves tractors. So we have him a little hard hat and a vest, and I always try and get him out there, and I put him on the tractor and I drive him around, and so he's involved in that way. His bed at home is a bulldozer.
Wow.
It's all about tractors, and I was the same way as a kid. My mom, it's
Really?
always, yeah. So yeah, he's involved in that
Do you
aspect.
think that shaped you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like it starts shaping them. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah. It's and that's where my happy place is playing around tractors, so you can be a business guy and an entrepreneur and still do the physical labor, but I just don't recommend doing everything. So employ the people in those areas.
It sounds like you study people, you study other businesses. What's your thoughts on that philosophy, advice around seeking mentorship, studying your competition?
I think studying your competition is a big thing. I don't really like competition is a great thing. We have to have it in this world. And I think that, but what I don't like about, I guess, the word or just competition is that people use it in the wrong way. People see it as like, oh, I got to beat this guy, and oh, they took my job, and so forth. And at the end of the day, that is so beyond wrong. There's enough fruit in this world for us all to eat. There's enough money for everybody. You just have to take your fair share of it. The universe is going to give you your fair share. The universe is going to give you what you put in to get it, and more. So when you're, just worried about beating your competition, it's really just dangerous, because you're giving the universe the wrong energy. You're giving your competition energy. You're giving them the upper hand. So I keep it very, obviously we have competition and it's a good thing. The reason it's a good thing is because if they can do it better, that's my fault. If I can do it better, that's their fault. And without competition, nobody would be trying to be better than anybody. And not better than anybody personally, but
Sure.
no one would try to be the better business and provide better value without competition. So that's where competition to me is really good. And then on the flip side, like I said, it could be really bad if you don't use it correctly. But you have to study that, and you have to study both sides of that, and always check yourself of what are you doing? Because there's times where we have our main competitor, and there's times where I'm like, damn, they got us. And then I have to check myself and be like, no, that was for them. They beat us. That's theirs. Like, go ahead. You have something coming. There's something else. Don't worry. And so you could get definitely caught in that. And I just think people need to really study and make sure that they're not using competition in the wrong way.
We've grown consistently. How have you managed that? Are there certain behaviors, thought process, general philosophy? Like, how have you stayed proactive in the business?
Being willing to do whatever it takes at any given time. I think that, like, kind of goes back to, never be too good for any part of the business. If all of a sudden we lose, our main, I'm just trying to give an analogy here, but if somebody's lacking because we lost somebody in, the underground division or whatever, like, I don't know everything there is to know, but I'll just go out there and be that guy until we can fill that spot. And I think that just being, what's the word? Just being able to fill in any void and not being too good for it. That's really how I've done it. And again, finding the people to handle the things that I don't know how to handle. As you're growing, you're going to get into, areas, for instance, you're going to get into jobs that I can't handle. I've never done, certain jobs with certain things. So I found the people who do have that knowledge. And so really, yeah, I guess that's really what it comes down to is finding the right soldiers to be on the field with you.
And you mentioned today that there's engineering and different, could you unpack that for the layperson? Because I'm thinking,
So for general engineering, what I mean by that is we do everything from grading, like dirt and earth movement, ground up build. So, grade the dirt, compact it, get it all to grade. And then you have your concrete, you have your underground utilities. So water, telephone, gas, all the utilities that we all use on a daily basis, those are all running underground. So there's that portion of it. And then the streets you're driving on. So we do streets, roads, sidewalks, ramps, parking lots, full development for sites. We're doing an 8-home development right now. So where we come in, knock the land down, grade the roads, grade the house pads, put in the sewer, put in the water. So it's basically all aspects of civil construction.
does that feel cool to say we built this, or I don't know, just
Yeah,
so far out of reach from a lot of even the guests that we have, and I have
yeah,
zero experience even
yeah,
being
no,
physically.
it's really fun, man. I mean, like, and I think I see it as like it's making our community better and safer too, because we're upgrading ADA ramps, handicap ramps, making old streets look good, just bettering the community. So yeah, it's really good to feels really good to go put out a product and be able to drive on it, and then have all your friends and family all seeing your work because it's outside, they're seeing it. So it's a really good feeling. And we all have our bad days. We've had some driveways or some parking lots where we actually ripped them out because it's construction and things happen. And I think that people are too scared to admit things like that. But I promise every construction company out there has made some mistakes. And we for sure have, but it's not the mistake, it's how you fix it. So
we've been doing this podcast, right? We're having this conversation. People are going to listen to it. Why?
Yeah.
Why the interest in it? Why? What's your take on? Because I see you on Instagram. I see you driving machines and having conversations, and so like, where's this interest come from? What do you think the value is of all of this?
Well, I think the value is for listeners and people watching. I think it's not going to be for everybody, obviously, but it's for some. And there's 7.8 billion people in the world, and I'm sure a portion of that is going to be interested in it or has interest. And I think more so my background story of the way I was raised, the things that I went through, all the adversity that's been against me, the victim mindset that I once had, and taking all of those things and turning it into something positive and good for not only your family, yourself, community, and society. I think that is what interests me the most, and I hope interests listeners the most. I have a lot of I have a spiritual connection to this, to creating something. I think we all need to create. I think creating is when you create something, you get to feel it, and others get to feel it. And I think that's where the value comes in doing and showing it and recording it and talking about it. I mean, it doesn't have to be construction. This could be anything. You could start a Jamba Juice. You could start anything you want. And you don't have to have gone to school. You don't have to graduate. You don't have to have the perfect upbringing. You don't have to have, your parents don't have to be perfect. Your family doesn't have to have the best history as a, name in general. And you can turn all of that around. And me personally, not only know that I am, but I want to be the person that changes the history of my family's legacy. Um,
Hmm.
that's the person I want to be. And I want people to, it's not really just about like the construction thing. I think is more of just, that's what I do. So that's how I did it. That's how I changed, you know, my life. And that's how I've given my family a good life. And, you know, it's not about that though. It's about the fact that if you put the same effort into anything, you can get the results that you want. And that's, you know, I hope that listeners want to hear that.
Someone's listening to this feels it like a victim. They sounds great, everything you're saying for you.
Mm.
What do you tell
Um, so if somebody feels like a victim, I'm sorry, I
them? Like
don't.
you once did, like they're where you were once at.
Mhm. What do I
Maybe
tell them?
when a lot of people tried to help you and you couldn't hear them.
Yeah.
It's almost if it's like, the people closest to you can give you great advice and you can't hear them,
Yeah.
but somebody from stage or somebody like us, like who
Yeah.
are we? We're
Yeah.
on the radio.
Yeah.
Like, what did you need to hear then that maybe others closest to you were saying that you couldn't hear? And can you just say that? Because maybe that'll save somebody's life.
Um, I think that I don't think anyone said any one thing to me. Well, actually, no. Somebody showed me something. It was actually my dad. Is it okay if I get a little, you kind of know my,
Sure.
okay. So, long story short, I'm not going to go into the whole background unless you want me to, but, I got on drugs. My father, I actually ended up doing drugs with him and my mother. And I got to a point so bad that I felt trapped and thought I was going to die, like, or not thought I was going to die. I basically just wanted to die because I didn't see another way out. I was trapped as a young kid, started with pills, turned into heroin at 16. And by 19 is kind of where, well, actually 18 is where my life changed. And my dad, although my upbringing, you know, was really tough. And, he's made a lot of mistakes, for me. Something that he did do that changed this for me. And this is where that victim mindset shifted, is he went and got 7 days sober. And I was still on drugs. And I literally thought you would die because that's how bad withdrawals were. He came to me and he goes, I want you to give me 3 days. You're mine for 3 days. And after 3 days, it's your decision. And so I said, okay, because I wanted to. I tried to leave multiple times in those 3 days. And he, kind of basically powered me like, no, sit your fucking ass down and you're gonna man up and you're gonna handle this. Okay. I'm obviously not happy. I'm dying, or what you think. You're like literally flu, everything. Anyways, 3 days goes by. Thank God, because it was the longest 3 days ever. And I still was not like, I mean, you're still 3 days, you're not and by any means good, but it was like I opened up, or I woke up on day 3 and I was like, wow, this actually feels good. Like I still feel like shit, but this feels good. Like I feel kind of like clear. So my dad comes to me, like he said, on day 3, and he's like, and now, so he was 7 days or 10 days ahead of me. So he's 2 weeks in, and, now I can see his, how he's looking. And he goes, it's day 3, door's right there. If you want to go back, go back. I didn't. I said, okay, no, I'm gonna keep going. Let's do this. 8 months go by. He actually kind of ended up going back to it. But I didn't. I found life again. And then I started to realize all the good things that were coming to me. And I had been from 13 to 18, so 5-6 years roughly, every day of my life doing opiates, whether pain pills or heroin. And we're 6-8 months in, and it hit me, and I go, so wait a second, you can fucking fuck up your body, you can just slap the universe or God or whatever you believe in the face and just destroy yourself for 6-7 years, and our bodies are so amazing that I'm almost fully healed within 6 months, 8 months. Like, that's not a fair trade. You would think if you mess up for 6 years and ruin your body, you would think it'd take 6 years. That's what's fair, right? You know, it would take 6 years to get normal. But life is so amazing, and our bodies and the universe is so amazing that it only took 6 to 8 months. And so then I started to realize you get what you give in this world plus some. And then I just kept starting to do the right thing. And I was, I was a new person. I was holding doors open for, everyone. I was smiling. I was happy. I was making people laugh. I was helping people, like my sisters or whatever, who any way I could. I was watching their kids. I was just doing small good things. And then the good things just kept coming to me. And it changed my mindset from victim, everything's against me, to no, I'm not a victim unless I want to be. I control my destiny. And I think that that's just where when I say just put in the effort and you'll get what you want, that goes with anything in life. So if you're feeling like a victim, if you think anybody owes you anything, if you think the world's against you, tough love, man the fuck up, chin up, chest out. No one owes you anything but yourself. And you owe yourself everything. We all owe ourselves everything that we want. And, if you want something, go give it to yourself. And the only people that have that power is us, ourselves. And I think we are all obligated to put that effort in, no matter what it is. And I think the other thing that comes after that is, once you have a family and you have kids, we need to be the men in their lives that make sure that they're a better generation than our generation. I think I think that's everybody's freaking, ultimate job, is to make sure every generation is better. And showing that the only way you get that is by putting in the effort and accountability. It's all in us, every bit of it. So I don't know if I went off on too much of a tangent on that one, but that would be what I would say to somebody with a victim mindset.